everybody, Fletch from All Things Overlanding here. On today's very special episode of Do-It-Yourself Mods, I'm going to be talking about a project that I just finished up that I'm super excited to share with you guys. I actually built a DIY roof rack out of Unistrut. I had kind of looked around a lot on YouTube and I hadn't really found a ton of good information, anybody really talking about how they used it, how they constructed it, giving instructions particularly. And especially if you're an Xterra guy, now this would work for whatever your application is, right? You can measure out your existing roof rack if you've got one and kind of figure out what dimensions you want for, mounting things on your existing roof rack. And then the Unistrut system just makes it really easy, both to build and then to mount things to. But I'm going to be providing step-by-step instructions, showing you kind of on a whiteboard, drawing it out exactly how I made this thing. And then again, at the end, I'll have it in the links in the description below to kind of everything that I bought. So if you want to do this exact same thing, it's really easy. But I used an angle grinder and some sockets, and that's about all I used to make this thing. And I tested it last weekend and it was awesome, flawless. It allowed me to mount my awning, it allowed me to mount my traction boards, and then it allowed me to mount my rooftop tent to my stock Xterra roof rack using this DIY roof rack. So it's awesome. I can't wait for you guys to see it. If you're new to the channel, again, my name is Fletch. This is All Things Overlanding. Obviously talk about overlanding stuff. Talk about Xterras, talk about do-it-yourself mods. I'm big into building my own stuff and figuring out how to engineer my own stuff to both save money and also give me the customization that I want. So if that's stuff you're interested in, definitely click that subscribe button down below. Also check out the description for links to Facebook, Instagram, podcast channels, wherever you want to hang out, come hang out. Before we dive into the episode, though, did just want to briefly touch on my featured partners. Overland Addict, great, awesome overlanding store. They sell everything to do with overlanding, so check them out in the description below. Last US Bags, again, awesome company. They make tons of cool overlanding gear. They've got some new stuff that's coming out, so click through that link below and go check out their overlanding recreation section on their website and see what they've got. And if anything interests you, definitely check that out. More Expo. We're getting really close now. It's December. It's about to be February here in a minute, and that's when this thing is taking place. So click through that link in the description below, get your tickets, and come hang out with me. I'll be there. And then last but not least, Northology Adventures. Awesome free overlanding magazine, comes out every month. So definitely click through there, subscribe to that, and check that out as well. So without further ado, though, let's dive into the episode. All right, guys, so I am starting on the Unistrut roof rack build. Went and picked up parts, which I will link to down in the description below to kind of show you exactly what I got. All in all, including, so I got 3 10-foot lengths of the Unistrut. I got the lower profile stuff just because I don't really need a lot of depth. I'm also not even planning to use this with the nylon washers or anything fancy. I'm literally, so these are the U-bolts that I bought previously to use to attach my rooftop tent, my DIY one, and then my purchased one, my off-grid Raptor, Halloween decorations over there, my off-grid Raptor tent. And just to show you here, these fit perfectly in the Unistrut, just the way that it is to by default. So again, I'm going to line up my 3, so I've got 3 crossbars on my Xterra. I'm going to line them up kind of at the ends, and then I'm going to, on each side, right? So this will be one side, and this will be the other side. So that's one side, this is the other side. Then I'm going to put 40-inch bars across that will span over the entire stock Xterra roof rack. Then I've got these, they're actually kind of cool. They're magnetic corner pieces that basically are going to snap on. So you find your little corner, and they're magnetic, so they'll actually kind of hold themselves on there while you put it together. And then I've got, Unistrut 1/2-inch bolts and nuts. I did think about, you probably could save a few bucks by, sourcing your own 1/2-inch nuts and bolts. These were about, so I went to Home Depot here in Indiana. It was about $2 for a bag of 10 nuts, and it was about $4.70 a bag, so just under $5 a bag for 5 of the bolts. So that's actually where a lot of the expense came. So I bought 4 bags of bolts. So I've got 20 bolts. I bought 2 bags of the hex nuts. So I've got 20 hex nuts. These were about $4 a piece for these magnetic corner pieces, but I need that to sort of hold the whole frame together. And then these were about $20 a piece for these 10-foot spans. So, you know, 20, 40, 60, 80. It was about right at I mean, like dead on with taxes, about $100. So if you're familiar with Xterras, you know that like the really nice like Dep or Hefty Fab roof racks are pretty expensive. Like, I mean, you're talking $1,000 probably, 600 to $1,000. I don't even remember. I haven't looked at them in a while, but they are more than 100. I will say that. But my plan is, again, about 5 foot. I'm going to show you, I'll break out the description of actually how I built this, but about 5 feet long, about 40 inches across. And then I'm going to have a couple of extra pieces, which is what the third long piece of Unistrut is for, that are going to actually go past. So I'm going to, once I get my box built, I'm going to mount then another 3 pieces of, actually I'm going to do 2 pieces of Unistrut that actually go wider than the 40-inch box and stick out the other side. And that is going to be to hold, sorry, my garage is a mess, I know, to hold the awning. So I'm going to mount the awning to those 2 bars. And then actually I just had the idea on the top of that bar, I'm going to put something at like a 45-degree angle. And I'm going to mount my traction mats up above the awning. So that way they're up and out of the way, but they're still accessible if I need them. When I'm driving, obviously the awning won't be out. That would be the only time I need it. And then when I get to camp, they'll just be up above the awning and mounted sort of semi-permanently to little pieces of the Unistrut. So you'll see that more in detail here when I get it done. But just cut this in half. The really nice thing is that they were smart and sort of thought about it. So halfway through this is in between 2 of the holes. So when I cut this down to 5 feet, the ends are perfect. I'm not like losing a hole or anything like that. So I'll still be able to then, you know, make my box and mount them across. Now it'll be interesting on the 40 inches. I'll let you guys know how that goes. But hopefully I can avoid a hole, or I might go, you know, 40 and a half or 41, but I'll update you in the description here when I do a little drawing here in a second to show you exactly what I ended up doing. All right, guys, so just an update. 40 inches actually works perfectly too. So you can see I started down at that end. The first 40-inch mark is right there, perfectly right in between those holes. Second 40-inch mark right there, perfectly in between those holes. And then, of course, you got the remainder. So these are 10-foot lengths, right? So 120 inches. So cutting them to 40 inches is just about perfect for the Xterra. It actually puts the 5-foot outside bars just on the outside of the main circular roof rack, which was my intention, right? To be able to attach things to it. Like, that's kind of the whole problem with the stock roof rack is it's round, so you can't really attach things very well. And there's, you know, issues with getting the bolts underneath of the cross members because it's really tight under there. And one thing I wanted to mention was these are the stock attachment points that came with my off-grid roof top 10. And just to test, I just checked them out, but they actually, on the Unistrut, they fit pretty much perfectly. So you can see, I mean, that thing is just gonna be just flush right on there. So that's really nice. All right, guys, so another little update, little piece of the pie here, puzzle, if you will. So I've got the frame constructed. So that's the bulk of the frame. So it's about 5 feet long. And the center pieces are about 40 inches across, plus then, of course, the width of the outside bar. So, but the inside of this is right at about 40 inches, which leaves a little bit of space between the stock Xterra roof rack and where this is actually going to sit. The bottom of this is all flat. They're all the same sort of width and everything. But so right now it's boxed. So I'm doing here, just to show you, you're gonna look at it and think that's kind of weird, but so this is the opposite end. So let me kind of turn this thing here and I'll show you. So as you can see here, I've got the box, right, the main box. Now earlier I mentioned that I was gonna put a central piece across the middle here. I actually don't have enough bolts and nuts to do that without having to go back and spend more money and make another trip and all that stuff. So what I've decided to do, because as I thought about it, once I put these 2 on here, so basically what I did was I measured about the length that I normally mount my awning, and it's about 50 inches. So overall the whole thing is 5 feet, so it's 60 inches. So I measured 5 inches in from each end, which is basically right on the first hole inside of the angled connector piece. Same on this end too. What I'm doing is, these are gonna mount just like this. So that's gonna give it additional structure and make it even stronger than it already is. So that's why I'm gonna forget about the middle piece, because again, this is all gonna be sitting on my roof rack anyways, and that's where most of the support is gonna come from. But once these are all put together, it's gonna be, nice and boxed and super sturdy. And I don't think I can, you have to get this stuff in your hands. Like, this is heavy galvanized steel. Like, it is high quality stuff, which is why so many people use it for this kind of stuff. So it's great and super, super sturdy. All right, guys, so one problem that I am running into, and I kind of mentioned it a little bit different time in the video, but I cut down this end, right? So I could get a socket on this nut or this bolt, because underneath, whoops, the nut there, you see, is inside the channel. So basically what I've been doing is taking like a flat wrench. Sorry, I'm gonna try and get the light out of your eyes. Taking a flat wrench and putting it up in the channel around the nut, and then using my socket to tighten down the bolt. You can see I've already gotten one of my brackets supports in here. The nice thing is, since the underside of this is flat, you don't have to deal with that channel issue. So I put one fixed wrench on the top and then put my socket on the bottom and tighten it down. And then, my awning will attach right here. And then I'm just gonna do the same thing on this side. And then basically that will attach to the back of the awning here. And yeah, the awning will be on. So then what I'm thinking is I'm gonna put the awning on. I'm gonna then lift the whole rack up onto the roof. And then at that point, that's when I'm gonna take the U-bolts and I'm gonna attach it to the stock roof rack. So my thinking is, and this is a little regrettable, but I think I'm gonna have this front part here be just past the front of my foremost cross member. So the very front cross member. And I'm gonna put my U-bolt down through this, and then it's gonna go over here and it'll go around the cross member. And I'm gonna do 2 of those up front. Actually, I may do 3 because I have 6 of them. So maybe 3 across the front. And then on the back, I measured this, so I'm pretty sure that this should line up with the back cross member. So again, the exact same thing will happen again. Put 3 U-bolts down through these holes and then back around the cross member and attach it to the cross member that way. So it'll have 6 big 3/8 inch U-bolts holding it to the stock roof rack. And then of course the whole thing is gonna rest on the main roof rack. So that's where all the strength is gonna come from. That's where all the weight bearing is gonna come from. So anyways, yeah, I'm excited to get it on. I am gonna, like I said though, get the awning attached to it first and then just lift the whole thing up and bolt it to the roof rack. So these will go just like this, and they will attach to the bottom of the rooftop tent. So yeah, the bottom of the rooftop tent, actually, and here I can show you. Don't mind the Halloween decorations here. The bottom of the rooftop tent has these slick little channels on it, and it came with screws, like bolts and nuts that will fit into that channel and won't turn. So I can maneuver them around until they are in the right spot, and then I'll just do one of these. So I'll basically move those bolts around, get this lined up with my cross member, and then attach it, and then we'll be all done. It'll be that easy. All right, guys, so it is mostly together now. Got the 2 additional cross members on. Also gone ahead and attached the awning to it. One thing that I did discover was, at least with my awning, I had originally drilled out these 2 holes and I was planning to mount with both those bolts, but, so my tent is about 52 inches across. From the edge of the awning to here, the other side is about 55 inches. So that should be just about perfect and even give me an inch or 2, I'm hoping, here on this side. So basically the tent will sit, right about here-ish, right inside the awning, sticking out a little bit. Now you may notice these 2 little extensions here. Basically what these are is, again, I had some extra left over of the Unistrut. And so my intention is that I wanted to get my traction mats up on the roof again. So they were up on the roof before, then I moved them inside the truck when I put the rooftop tent on because I just didn't have the room. But now with this extra space, this extra overhang where the awning is gonna be, again, I put It's a little bit of extra of the Unistrut there. And you can see I just drilled a couple of holes through these. So these will actually sit upside down like this. And I'm just gonna run the U-bolt down through the holes of the Unistrut extensions there. And then on the underside, I've got these bolts, you know, just normal U-bolt stuff that will secure it. And basically I'll tighten those up so that it's hanging essentially from those. So then the traction mats will basically be tucked up here behind the awning and out of the way. But then if I need to get to them, they'll be on the driver's side. I can hop out of the truck, have easy access to them. I did measure, they're about 3 inches tall. And from the bottom of this, of the Unistrut roof rack to the top of the door, I have about 4 inches. So it's gonna be really close. We're gonna have to see. I'm gonna have to get those U-bolts snugged really tight so that 1, they don't move, and then 2, they don't hit the door. But I think it should work out just about perfectly. If it doesn't, I can always just unbolt these little extensions and forget about it. But I just figured with the extra space over here, it made sense to possibly put those there too. So pretty excited to see how that works out. But yeah, I like that little addition. So more to come when I get it on the truck. So basically the way I'm attaching it to the stock roof rack is these U-bolts, which I'll put a link to down below. I'm just super paranoid about it for some reason, but I'm gonna use 6. But so I've only done the back right now. So I've got 1 here, 1 in the middle around the cross member, and then 1 around this side over here. So I've kind of got it both ways, right? I've got it attached to the side so it doesn't move side to side, and then I've got it attached to the cross member so it can't move backwards and forwards. These also sit right on the edge of the cross member, so that'll also keep it from moving forwards or backwards no matter what. But right now I only have 3 of these attached, and look at this. Like the whole truck is shaking, it won't move. And I still have 3 more left to do. So it's gonna be super strong. I'm super excited about it. I wanted to demonstrate exactly how I built this roof rack and kind of also show you, specifically if you have a 2nd gen Xterra, sort of the shortcomings, the shortfalls of this stock roof rack and why I had to do this. But also if you have any sort of vehicle with, you know, some sort of an abnormal roof rack, which I feel like most vehicles do, where it's not sort of like an aftermarket constructed specifically for attaching multiple things to, they just don't work, right? So this do-it-yourself roof rack that I built out of Unistrut cost me about $100, which was significantly cheaper than buying any of the like pre-made roof racks. And it honestly was one of the easiest projects I've ever done. I'm actually super excited to think of other ways that I could use Unistrut for other ideas because of how easy it was to work with and how inexpensive it is overall. But so just to kind of give you guys an idea, right? So here is the front of the truck. So these are headlights, okay? Grill, that's the grill, right? And then here's the rear of the truck. So we got rear window, bumper, okay? So rear, if I could write, that'd be great. And then here is the front. Okay. So with the Xterra, you basically have these 2 rounded metal bars that are about 2.5 inches wide. They're just these big chunky aluminum bars. And they're great. They're strong, which is nice. And typically standard on an Xterra, you'll also get 2 cross members that are adjustable. So they basically got these sort of grips on them that grip onto the rounded pipes, if you will, the rounded roof rack parts. And there's a T30 Torx bit that holds them in place. You basically loosen up the T30 here, slide the roof rack cross member to wherever you need it, and then tighten it back down, and that's it. On my rig, because before I had it set up with my own DIY rooftop tent, I added a 3rd cross member to spread the weight because I was using these cross members to support the weight of the tent. My original tent was about 36 inches across. My new rooftop tent is 52 inches across. And so you're going to see here in a second why that's a problem. So this stock roof rack from outside edge to outside edge here is about 38 inches. Okay. So think about that. So I've basically got 14 extra inches of overhang. So if you center it, 7 inches on each side that this thing hangs off. Not a big deal, right? Like it's not going to hurt anything. I'm not concerned about it. I mean, the frame for the rooftop tent is really strong. The problem is I also have a tough stuff awning. that was mounted using the stock stuff, like the stock mounting stuff that came with it, which is basically an L bracket that then I put underneath of one of these cross members, and then I sandwiched that with U-bolts to the stock cross member. That's how I did it. And so then this was my awning, right? But so think about that. So if this is 38 inches and my new rooftop tent is 52 inches, unless I have 14 inches of overhang on my passenger side, I have this thing hanging over a foot, off the side of the truck, which would look ridiculous and also be kind of a hazard and a safety concern. I'm not going to be able to have this awning on here. So I had a trip that came up that I wanted to use the rooftop tent for. So I just had to disassemble and pull off my awning and just not have an awning for this 5-day trip that I went on because I had to mount the rooftop tent to the stock roof rack. But then when I got back from that trip, I'm like, man, this is ridiculous. Like I have an awning. I want to be able to use it. I would love to mount traction mats up here. I'd love to have some flexibility and some universality where I could, stick a little arm off. Cause I actually, this is a sort of a new thing that I haven't really told anybody about, but I recently picked up one of those Wii Boost things because a lot of the places I go, I have just a smidgen of reception, but I do not have a ton of those GPS-based texting things or anything like that. They're super expensive. The Weeboost is not cheap. It's about $500, but I also like to work from the woods sometimes if I can. I like to go out to Hoosier National Forest, and I have a little bit of LTE, but not very much. But if I had, I figure with the Weeboost, I'll have enough where I can actually work from the woods and get enough reception that I could get in touch with family if I needed to, if there was an emergency or something like that. Where I'm going with that is with this new rack, and I will show you more about this here in a second, because it's so universal, I could, add a little string or a little bar that came off the back, for example, and then mount my antenna for the Weeboost to the back in a heartbeat, because there's all these holes along the Unistrut. It's amazing stuff. So because of that, that's why I decided to go with the Unistrut thing. Also, I was doing a lot of research and doing, searching on YouTube and all that good stuff, and I could not find anything. So I feel like no one's really covered this, but it's awesome stuff. So to solve this problem, the do-it-yourself roof rack idea was born. Again, these dimensions that I'm going to show you here in a second are for an Xterra specifically, but just measure basically what I did was I measured, like I just showed you, across the roof rack, and then I measured the length of the roof rack. And then I compared that to my rooftop tent, made sure that it was most of the footprint of the tent would be resting on the roof rack or the do-it-yourself roof rack on top of my existing roof rack, right? And that's how I measured it. And that's how I came up with my measurements. So my roof rack, my do-it-yourself Unistrut roof rack, is smaller than the frame of my rooftop tent, but larger than the existing frame of my roof rack that basically fits in between those. It sandwiches in between those two and allows me to mount, like I said, a variety of things to that do-it-yourself roof rack, which then is mounted itself to my existing stock roof rack. So let's take all this stuff off here and just forget about this for a second, right? So to show you the design of the actual roof rack itself that I made, we'll keep this on here, right? So this is still my stock roof rack. Again, 38 inches, right? I just erased that, I realized. What I did was I measured across, and I wanted my do-it-yourself roof rack to not be longer than the existing bars, because I wanted it, or to be a little bit longer, I guess I should say. Because I wanted it to hang off, but I wanted it to box, basically. I built a box out of Unistrut. Then the Unistrut arms themselves on the side sit just outside of the stock roof rack, which gives me that extra room that I needed. And I'll show you why I did that here in a second. So I basically got two pieces of Unistrut here. These, now again, for an Xterra, and again, if yours is similar, I measured this and it's about 50 inches long, a little bit less from front to back of my stock roof rack. So I actually made this 5 feet long. So that's 60 inches, right? So I got about 5 inches on the front and about 5 inches on the rear where I overhang. But it's basically 5 feet long. So then Unistrut comes in 10-foot pieces. So I literally just had to cut this once with an angle grinder in half. Gave me 2 5-foot pieces. The nice thing about Unistrut too is they were really smart about the design of their holes. Their holes in the Unistrut are not just circles, right? They're actually more like sort of like long ovals like that. When I cut that 10-foot piece in half, it literally just fit right between two of those holes. And that seemed to work itself out every time I cut this stuff. Like pretty much as long as you're not cutting it in a super weird dimensions, like if you're cutting it in even feet, these holes seem to line up pretty well, and I just cut right in the middle. So I didn't lose any holes or any weird mounting problems or anything like that. It was actually super easy. And it gives you flexibility when you're mounting stuff to it, because you could be at this end or this end with the bolt, or in the middle, and then just tighten it down. So anyway, so I've got 5 feet long, 2 sections, right? So that's one piece of Unistrut. That's about $20 for a 10-foot span of Unistrut. If you buy it at your local hardware store, I'm going to give you Amazon links below in case you don't want to go out with COVID or don't want to go mess with it. It is a lot easier to order on Amazon. I just didn't do it because I was figuring out what I was doing as I went, right? So I went to the hardware store, and that's where I came up with some of my ideas. But for you guys, again, I'm going to lay this all out for you, so hopefully it's super helpful and you can just know exactly what you want to get. And if you want to order it off Amazon, great. If you want to go to Lowe's, take the stuff with you and just go there and get it. It's probably a little cheaper. So anyways, we've got 2 5-foot long sections, and then basically across what I did was I did 40 inches. Okay, so this is 40 inches. Again, the stock box is 38. Now the way that this worked out was I actually got a little bit more than 40 inches because these are on the inside of these bars. Okay, so we've got the 2 5-foot sections, and then I've got laid inside of that these 40-inch sections of bar. And then I had one up front. So then up front, we got one more that sits right inside of that, right? But so what that did was it allows these cross members, or these big long pieces, the 5-foot section, sit just on the outside of the stock roof rack. Now I know what you're thinking. Okay, so you've got this box made, but now it's straddling it. Does it not just fall down around the roof rack and not support itself? Here's the key. So the way that I did it, and the thing that's actually weight bearing for my rooftop tent, is then I took 2 more pieces of Unistrut. Now these I measured, I believe, were about 48 inches. So they're significantly longer than this, right? Now they sit on top of here, so you're losing, maybe 2 inches. So it's really like a 6-inch overhang. Okay, so I've got 2 of these. I got one that goes like that, and then I got one that goes like this. And I kind of, centered them up. I measured them out. Obviously, you got to use the stock holes, or you don't have to, but I use the stock holes on the Unistrut to support them. But so these are 48 inches. 48 inches. Okay, so basically you've got this box now made out of Unistrut. And then to further strengthen it, to keep it from flexing or bending at all, I added these 2 pieces that go across. Now, I know you're thinking, okay, but you've got this overhang. What is that for? That is how I mount the awning. Okay, so again, this is the front of the truck. This is the back of the truck. The way I have mine set up is my door for my rooftop tent is on this side. Okay, so actually in the passenger side of my truck is where I put my ladder down here, and I climb up into the rooftop tent at night. Now on the other side, I've got this overhang of this Unistrut. And then what I did was I took those those L brackets, right? And the same way that I had them previously on my stock cross members, I just mounted them using the holes in the Unistrut, right? Now what I did have to do was, mine came with these like really small, like 1/4 or 3/8 inch holes. I did have to put them in my drill press and drill those out to about 1/2 inch holes, because I'm using 1/2 inch bolts and nuts for this project. I also like that because it's just a little bit more hefty. It's a little bit stronger. It is, hanging off the side of the truck on this Unistrut. So I liked the idea of using bigger bolts and nuts to kind of hold it together. So what I did was I actually drilled out 2 of the holes. Mine had 4 holes drilled in it, but I drilled out the backmost one and then the 3rd one in, basically, on my L brackets. Now that's going to be different based on your awning, right? Do some measurements, see where your holes are in your Unistrut and how long your L bracket is, and then just drill, mark those with a Sharpie or something on your L bracket, and then drill those to about 1/2 inch if you want to do that. Or you could use washers and a smaller bolt and nut. My only concern with that is, and again, I'm going to say it here, guys, like, I don't take any liability for this. This is up to you when you're building this thing to make sure you build it, super stiff, and you check it, and you're constantly going around and checking your bolts and nuts, because if this fell apart, it would be bad. I've had mine on for about a month now, and I've had no problems with it. I've checked the bolts and nuts a couple times. I haven't had anything loosen up. You could use, thread lock and stuff on them too. Like, use all the normal precautions. This is just my idea for how I did this thing. You've got to be responsible for your own stuff, right? But so I drilled out those 2 holes on my L brackets, and then I basically I mounted those to the roof rack, and then I just, like normal, I strapped up my awning to that. And then what that did to, like, kind of bring this home here for what this is, so then my rooftop tent, right? So this is 48 inches. It bolts on here. So again, I lose an inch here and I lose an inch there, or I'm going over it an inch, right? So let's say if this is 40 inches in the middle and you got an inch here and an inch here, this is 42 inches. So I have 6 inches of overhang over here. So this sticks out 6 inches, right? Now keep in mind that the rooftop tent was about 52 inches across, right? Which means that we have 14 inches of difference. So that's 7 inches if you center it perfectly, okay? So that would then be contacting the awning. So what I did was I just moved it in about 1.5 inches or 2, so it actually sticks off maybe an extra inch on this side than it does on this side. But I'm telling you, at a glance, you can't even tell. So I just offset it just a little bit, and then I used the stock mounting things that came with my rooftop tent, and I mounted them under these, which again, these are normal. These are like 1 inch by like 1/2 inch, the ones that I got. So they're like 1 inch across, and then they're about 1/2 inch deep. So they fit perfectly. They actually were almost even a little bit too narrow for the stock holders that came with the rooftop tent, but it also comes with these like rubber inserts that you can put in there that will make it fit more tightly if it's something smaller, like a smaller bar like this, and it doesn't rattle, it doesn't move at all. It actually worked perfectly. So again, my rooftop tent sits up here, right, and goes about, call it 5 inches off this side and about 7 or 9 inches, I guess, off this side, right? So that's the rooftop tent. And then my awning is just right there. And then the other nice thing is, with this overhang, I held my traction mats up and they fit in here perfectly. So in between the edge here where the awning mounts and the edge of the truck, my traction mats actually sit right here. And then I'm working on some quick releases right now for them, but they hang on the bottom of these 2 Unistrut bars. So basically what I did was I put 2 additional pieces of extra Unistrut that I had here, and then that's what I'm using to mount it. And I'm making quick releases for that. So there'll be a video coming on that before too long, but I just like it because it's out of the way. It's still accessible, and with the quick releases that I'm making, it should be really easy to pop them up and take them down. They're on the driver's side, so again, you could reach them from inside your truck if you had to. If you got stuck somewhere, you know, you could reach out and reach them. And it gets them outside of the truck. Currently, I've got mine stashed inside my truck, so it's just taking up space that it doesn't need to. They're plastic, doesn't hurt anything for them to be outside. They're covered by the rooftop tent anyways. But so that was just another modification that I made. Again, I've got a WeBoost coming, so I've got to look at it and see, you know, the best way to mount it. I'm not sure if I want to go off the back or the front. But either way, now I can just take a spare piece of Unistrut, maybe 6-8 inches long, and put a little bar out, right? And then just mount my antenna right there, and it'll be at the highest point on the tent. It won't interfere, or the highest point on the truck. It won't interfere with taking the cover on and off for the tent. So it's super cool, right? Like, you can mount whatever you want on this thing. So anyways, that's kind of the walkthrough. That gives you all the dimensions. So again, if you have questions, post up in the comments below about that. Again, the rest of the video is kind of show you that. I'm going to walk you around it. I'm going to show you what it actually looks like on the truck, but I just wanted to kind of give you a quick talk through of exactly how I build it, the dimensions, kind of the design behind it. But take this and go nuts, guys, right? Like, again, if you have a different kind of vehicle, there's no reason that you can't do something totally cool on your own. Just make it different dimensions, right? If you have different things you want to mount, think about that. Think about how you want to mount them and build something cool. So again, I hope that's helpful for you. Let's jump back into the video where I'm kind of walking you around it and showing you the whole thing. Okay, so I did want to walk you around. I've got some other video that I've shown, but now I'm actually out in the wild. I just drove 2 hours away from where I live in the northeast side of Indy to Hoosier National Forest. The tent stayed on, nothing moved, no problems. So I did want to kind of just walk you around and show you this Unistrut roof rack that I built. So it's very, very simple. And again, the other video that I've taken will kind of give you some more details, kind of how I built it, the dimensions of it and everything. So if you have an Xterra, you could literally do the same thing. But I wanted to kind of show it to you in practice, like show it to you in use so you can see it. And then I'm also going to give you a couple of tips from things that I've learned since I made it and as I installed all this stuff on top. So, you know, again, there will be links in the description to all this stuff, the Unistrut stuff. But you can see basically it's essentially a box made of Unistrut, right? So it runs about 5 feet down the side and it runs about 40 inches across. You can buy these sort of V-shaped connectors. And then I bought 1/2 inch bolts and nuts basically, which are what's holding it all together. So I basically made a box out of that. And then I lined up where I wanted my cross members to go. And I used Unistrut for that. And I made it slightly longer than the 40 inches that the box is. And I'll show you why. The reason was that I wanted some extra to stick out here, and you can see why. So I basically had to bore out these holes, and this is adjustable. So I could move this in more if I wanted it to, but I kind of like having it this far away for a couple of reasons. One, it makes getting to the tent a lot easier. I was worried that if I pushed it all the way in there, that it would be literally right up against the tent cover, and then that would make getting the cover off a little bit harder. And two, I also added from scrap that I had these couple of little arms here. And what those are for, and I just had to take them off because I'm working on a quick release for it because it's kind of a pain to put on. But I've got U-bolts that I put down through here and through there. And then I had my traction mats mounted on the bottom of them, so held up from the bottom via U-bolts. It gets them out of the way. They're easy to access, right? They're like right here on the side of the truck, so if I ever got in trouble, I could just grab them right off of there. But again, they were U-bolts with basically just nuts on them, and so it was a pain in the butt to get off. So I took them down, and I'm working on like a cotter pin solution and then a lock of some kind. So again, there'll be more videos to come on that to give you guys an idea of exactly how I did that, but that's how I did it. And that's the beauty of this Unistrut, right? Is it's pretty universal. So you could put these wherever you wanted to. You could put additional ones if you wanted more strength. You could box these out. I'm kind of thinking about it because you can see they kind of move. I mean, it's not going to go anywhere. They've got 1/2-inch bolts through them. But like I may box this at some point. I may take a piece and put it across the top just to make it extra strong so that it doesn't move so much. But yeah, that's where the traction mats are going to go. And then of course I've got my awning, which now just sticks out plenty far. That was beneficial in a couple of ways. So I don't know if you can see or not here, but I've got a bunch of chipped paint here because these zippers actually, when it was right up on the truck, so I had it on the stock roof rack, those zippers kept getting caught in here, and then they would just move back and forth as I was driving or every time I opened and closed the hatch. And it's just been slowly sort of chipping the paint off of there. So now it's out plenty far away. I mean, as you can see, it's pretty stable on there. I mean, it's these are connected to these cross members that go all the way across under the tent. Then using the stock mounting system that comes with the tent, I've got that attached to these cross members as well. So the tent is sitting on top of this by the main Xterra roof rack. So I've got extra strength. I've also got 3 U-bolts. I've got them holding it from moving horizontally and vertically, because then I've got one in the middle too and then one on the other side. So again, I just drove 2 hours. This thing did not move. It's great. All right, guys, so that was the do-it-yourself roof rack. I'm sure there are going to be questions that come up, so definitely post up in the comments down below and let me know what you're thinking. Let me know if you've done something similar, or let me know if you have questions about anything that I did here, and I'd be happy to help you. Again, I'm super impressed with this stuff. The ease of working with it, the ease of cutting it and modifying it to use for something like this was awesome, actually. For anybody with a tiny bit of skill and the desire to build their own stuff, it's amazing. Like I'm thinking about other projects I can do with this stuff already. So again, I hope that was helpful. If you don't already, make sure to click the subscribe button, subscribe to the channel. Check me out on Facebook, Instagram, podcast channels, wherever you want to be, wherever you want to listen to the content. And also there's a link to the store down below. If you're interested in patches or stickers, anything like that, all things overlanding, check it out. So again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next week.